So Nintendo finally showed off some more of the new Zelda game coming to Wii U. Except the video's like 10 seconds long. I mean, it's literally half over already. But come on, you know us, that won't stop us from running it through the all analysis machine to see what secrets it might be hiding. Now before we get started, you might want to check out our 2 previous analyses that go super in depth on everything else you know about the game. You'll find links to them in the description below. And with that out of the way, let's get started. Okay, so one of the main things to take away from this gameplay is how vibrant and alive the world feels, which is a point that even Nintendo itself drew attention to with how they transitioned from footage of Twilight Princess HD, where we see Link riding horseback across a flat, featureless landscape, to Zelda Wii U, where Link is still riding horseback, but now across a world rich in detail and depth. I mean, sure, both games technically featured grass, but while the grass in Twilight Princess is represented by a flat texture, you can literally see every individual blade in Zelda Wii U. You can even see different types of flowers mixed in too, and that vegetation feels alive, such as how you can actually see it being pushed aside as opponent storms through, or how you can see it sway in the breeze even when you're just standing there. And by the way, did you spot the blades of grass being blown around in the wind too? Yeah, there's a ton of detail here. Okay, now I realize it might just be grass, but it's just one part of what makes this world feel so alive. Because it's not just the grass that reacts to the opponent's presence, as we can see that opponent frightens a flock of birds too. And beyond that, there are a ton of goats around Link here as well. I mean, there's a one here, then we can see 4 more on the hillside at the end of the video, and if we go back to the very start and freeze it, we can see 4 more here, followed by 2 more that can just barely be seen here. I guess Zelda Wii U just really wants that GOAT award. Okay, now although we have seen a few goats and even horses in the earlier gameplay videos, this is the most we've seen in such a small area. And while we don't see the goats do too much here, we already know from the original E3 trailer that they'll also react to things going on around them, much like the birds that opponents scared away, or the grass is pushed aside. So like I said, all of this taken together really does make the world feel alive. But what if there's even more to it than just that? I mean, we can't help but wonder that emphasis on such a detailed and realistic world might hint at new gameplay mechanics. Take the grass for example. It's super detailed and everywhere. So what if it actually factored into the gameplay? Like, what if you had to keep an eye out for rustling grass in order to find small creatures that couldn't otherwise be seen? For example, did you notice that you can just barely see the birds in the grass before opponent scares them away? And with how thick that grass is, what if Link could crawl through it in order to sneak up on enemies? Kinda like a Metal Gear Solid 3. And if that were the case, then you might have to be careful to avoid spooking the wildlife. Again, like with the birds, as those creatures might tip off the people you're trying to sneak up on. After all, in last year's Game Awards footage, we saw how wild horses would get scared and an opponent began to gallop toward them. And even before that, in the E3 trailer, we saw how goats would react to a noise in the distance. So having a world that reacts to you definitely seems to be a running theme in this game. And going with this idea, Link is still wearing the hood as he was in the Game Awards footage, which makes sense if he's trying to maintain a low profile. Makes you think, right? Having a stealth-like mechanic has certainly added greater context to these little details. I mean, beyond just looking pretty. And boy, do they look pretty. Okay, that's quite enough about the grass. Now let's take a look at the rest of the world, which looks pretty similar to everything else of it we've seen so far, featuring rolling hills and pockets of trees, which of course is surrounded by some pretty large looking mountains. In fact, mountains have been featured prominently in pretty much every section of the game we've seen thus far, and that's probably for a good reason, because although the game appears to be far more open than any Zelda game before, the mountains still serve as anchors for the landscape, forming natural looking paths that guide you through the environment. We can already see that here with how the mountains just ahead form 2 paths, with one going left through some trees, and the other going right to some more trees. So while the world may be open, or more open, it still appears to have structure. Anyways, let's take a closer look at the trees on the right, because they appear to be growing from within a small body of water. So this might be some kind of swamp or marshland, similar to this area shown in the E3 trailer. And by the way, some of those trees are notably bigger than the others. Are they hiding something in there? Now just beyond those trees, we get our best look at what is almost surely Death Mountain. I mean, it has ominous looking clouds above, and lava pouring down the sides. And we get an even better look at it if we freeze a clip just before it goes off screen, due to the game's use of a fisheye lens. Although on second thought, the lava pouring down the sides also reminded us of Elden Volcano from Skyward Sword, which many people theorize is actually the precursor to Death Mountain. So maybe the two are connected. I mean, we have already pointed out a few other similarities to Skyward Sword in past analysis as well. Anyways, if we let the camera continue to pan, we can see something odd poking up from the mountain on the right. At first, we thought it might be one of the wooden watchtowers we've seen before peeking up from behind the mountain, but upon closer inspection, it almost looks like it has a platform as a base. So could it be a statue maybe? But that's not the only interesting structure here, because if you take a look at the left side of the world, we can see something that appears to be lit up on a ridge, but it's pretty much impossible to make out. Although it does sort of look like a tent or teepee of some kind, with a canvas body and the support sticking out the top. But we really are just guessing. But running with the tent idea, could it be home to a wandering traveler? Maybe perhaps even Link? He does carry a sleeping mat with him on the back of his horse after all, so maybe he'll actually have to set up camp for the night. And that area does look pretty secluded, maybe to keep enemies at bay? The mere fact that its structure stands out so much certainly makes it seem like it's of some importance to the gameplay. And if we continue with that idea, what if that tent served as your base of operations? Maybe from where you can choose which items to bring with you for the day. After all, Epona is also saddled with saddlebags, so maybe she can also be used as a more mobile storage unit, particularly since she's never been outfitted in this way before. But let me just stress, we're really just spitballing here. Now there is one final detail about the world here that I wanted to point out, and it's at the very end of the trailer. Do you see that over there? Wait, are you telling me you don't see anything at all? That's kind of the point. There's nothing blocking the view of what appears to be the ocean, which is the first time we've actually seen it in actual gameplay. So between the ocean, the setting sun to the west, or at least we think it's a setting sun and not a rising sun, as well as Death Mountain or Elden Volcano, which is generally to the north, we think this scene probably takes place in the same general area as the Game Awards footage, being in the southeast corner of the map. Which would make sense if this is still near the start of the game, which is indicated by Link still having a wooden shield, as well as the fact that he's still not wearing his green tunic. Oh, and before we move on, since I couldn't figure out where else to fit in this detail, we can see a large bird flying around near the end of the trailer too. Yeah, there really is a ton going on in this scene. Okay, and that covers it for the world itself, but there's still one more thing we haven't talked about much yet, and that's Link himself. Now at first, he looks pretty much identical to how he appeared in previous trailers, but upon closer inspection there are some differences. For one, the pattern on the blue tunic he's wearing is slightly different than how it appeared in the E3 trailer, now featuring a more symmetrical design. Next, his wooden shield's different too. Now, in last year's Game Awards footage, we noticed that his shield featured a drawing that resembled an eye, or more specifically, the symbol of the Sheikah people. But this time, the shield features a diamond-like pattern, with half circles to either side. So either the developers changed the design, or maybe this hints at there being multiple shields of the same type, like in Skyward Sword. In which case, this could mean the shields might have a limited durability this time as well. It would be yet another potential connection to Skyward Sword, on top of all the other ones we've already pointed out before. Next up, let's take a look at Link's sword. Look how big it is! It stretches down past Link's foot! And that's not the only unusual thing about it, because there doesn't appear to be a proper handle either. In fact, it looks more like a pole. And that basically confirms that this sword is in fact different from the one featured in the Game Awards footage, because that one had a proper hilt, and also didn't appear to be as big. Oh, and check this out. If we zoom in on the blade, we can see that the sword appears to have chip marks in it, which not only is a pretty cool detail, but might suggest even more about this sword, or swords in general, such as how that sword might have quite a bit of history associated with it, like maybe it was handed down to Link by someone else. Or maybe, as with our shield idea, perhaps swords will take actual battle damage during fights, which might force you to replace them if they break during battle. Now, even though the Sheikah symbol may be missing from Link's shield, it's not missing from the trailer entirely, because check this out. If we zoom in on Link, we can see what appears to be a book. Look, that's a spine, and we can see what appear to be pages inside. And check out what's on the cover. Yep, the symbol of the Sheikah people, complete with a bright blue eye. So based on the book's prominent appearance, as well as how Link is practically wearing the thing, we have a feeling it's going to play a pretty major role in the game. As for what it might do, well, we're not quite sure. Could it be a log of some type, where Link could keep track of notes? That would make sense if you can draw on it using the gamepad. But based on the Sheikah symbol, it also seems like it might tie into the story in some way. Maybe it can be used to translate text, similar to the book from A Link to the Past. We're really just spitballing here. Although, I do have one other idea, and it all goes back to that eye, because that eye is unusually prominent for the Sheikah symbol. And then I noticed its color, light blue, which reminded me of the light blue energy that we saw Link's bow and arrow emit, as well as the enemy back in the E3 trailer. An energy that we had previously suggested could be linked to the timeshift crystal from Skyward Sword, which emitted a very similar looking light blue energy when in use. Huh, so could all of this be related? Could that Sheikah eye maybe be a timeshift crystal or something based on that technology? Which itself might suggest that the book might have some pretty awesome timeshifting abilities. Now of course it is possible that none of this is related to Skyward Sword at all, but that could still mean that the stone and the light blue energy we saw at E3 might still coexist as an entirely new thing. Regardless, I think there's more to that book than meets the eye. And with that, we're done covering everything we could dig up on the 10 seconds of footage. But like usual, let us know if we missed anything by posting in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and make sure to stay tuned to GameXplain for more on Zelda Wii U and other things gaming too.